picture this. Your kids are running through the living room, shrieking, cutting left, cutting right, completely unpredictable. And your Border Collie is right there with them, circling, darting ahead, cutting them off, nipping at their heels. You tell the dog to stop. The dog doesn't stop. You raise your voice. The dog glances at you for half a second, then goes straight back to work. Most people watching that scene read it as a problem. Overexcitement maybe, bad behavior that needs more training, some kind of aggression waiting to get worse. But what if your Border Collie isn't reacting to your kids at all? What if they're managing them? Because from your dog's perspective, what's happening in that room isn't chaos, it's a job, and nobody told them to stop. This is Collie Mind, where we get into the real psychology of this specific breed, not general dog advice you could find anywhere. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening in your Border Collie's brain during those moments, and you'll never read that behavior the same way again. To understand why your Border Collie locks onto your kids the way they do, you need to understand something called the Predatory Motor Sequence. Every dog carries a version of this sequence. It's the behavioral chain that wolves use to hunt. Orient, eye, stalk, chase, grab, kill. That's the full chain in a wild predator. Now here's what 200 years of selective breeding did to the Border Collie. Shepherds needed a dog that could control livestock, not destroy it, so they bred out the end of the chain. The grab and the kill are gone. But everything before that, the orient, the eye, the stalk, the chase, the herd, that part is not just intact, it's amplified. It's been refined and sharpened through generations of selection until it runs faster, cleaner, and more automatically than in almost any other breed on Earth. So when your Border Collie sees your kids run across the room, that sequence doesn't sit and wait for a decision. It fires. The dog orients, the eye locks on, the stalk begins, and then the chase, the cutoff, the heel nip, that's the herd step executing exactly as designed. Your dog isn't losing control. Your dog is doing the thing they were built to do with extraordinary precision. The reason children trigger this so reliably comes down to movement patterns. Think about what a sheep does when it breaks from the flock. It moves unpredictably. It changes direction without warning. It makes noise. It accelerates suddenly. Now think about what kids do when they're playing. The movement profile is nearly identical. Your Border Collie's brain isn't making a conscious comparison between your child and a sheep. It's scanning for a specific set of movement signals, sudden direction changes, high-pitched sounds, irregular speed, and when those signals appear, the sequence launches. This is why the behavior doesn't respond well to simple correction in the moment. You're not dealing with a dog who chose to do this and could choose differently with enough convincing. The sequence is closer to a reflex than a decision. Telling a Border Collie to stop mid-sequence is a bit like telling someone to stop blinking when a hand comes at their face. The signal and the response are wired together at a level that runs below conscious choice. And the nipping specifically, that's not aggression, and it's worth being clear about that. Heel nipping is the precision tool of the herd step. It's how a Border Collie moves a sheep that's going the wrong way. The dog isn't trying to hurt the child. The dog is applying the exact technique their genetics specified for redirecting something that's moving out of bounds. Now the predatory motor sequence explains what lights the fuse. But dopamine explains why the fire keeps burning. Border Collies are wired to work in a way that's neurochemically distinct from most breeds. When a BC successfully controls movement, when they cut something off and it changes direction in response, that outcome triggers a dopamine release. The brain registers it as a win, and a brain that just got a win wants another one immediately. Every time your child changes direction because your dog cut them off, that's a dopamine hit. Every successful circle, every heel nip that produces a reaction, every moment where the dog shifts the movement of another body, reward. The dog isn't choosing to keep going because they're stubborn or poorly trained. They're responding to a neurochemical feedback loop that's telling them repeatedly that this is working and to keep doing it. This is also why verbal corrections alone don't interrupt the behavior. You're essentially asking a spoken word to override a chemical reward signal that's firing continuously. The loop is faster and louder than the cue. It gets more complex in high-chaos environments. At a birthday party, a playdate, a backyard game with 6 kids running in 6 directions, every one of those kids is a simultaneous trigger. The sequence fires multiple times at once. Each small success produces another dopamine hit. The whole system accelerates, and from the outside it looks like the dog is spinning out. but internally, your Border Collie is in a state of focused, purposeful, neurochemically rewarded work. They're not getting worse, they're getting more satisfied. Those two things just look identical from across the room. There's a third layer here, and it's the one that explains why this behavior is so persistent even when the dopamine loop gets interrupted. Border Collies don't just respond to movement, they respond to disorder. The herding instinct isn't simply about chasing things that move, it's about imposing structure on a system that has none. On a hillside, that means taking a scattered flock and turning it into a coherent, manageable group. The dog reads the chaos, identifies what's out of place, and works until the system resolves. That's the job. Not chase, not control for its own sake. Resolution. When your kids are playing freely, running in random directions, changing games, screaming, piling on top of each other, your Border Collie isn't watching that and thinking fun. They're watching it and reading an unresolved system. No pattern, no predictable flow, no one managing the variables. To a brain built for 10 hours of active flock management, that registers as an open problem, and open problems create tension. So the herding isn't the dog acting out, it's the dog trying to close the loop. They're not attempting to dominate your kids or protect them from some threat. They're trying to bring order to something their brain won't let them ignore. Every time a child moves unpredictably, the disorder signal fires again. Every attempt to gather, redirect, and contain is the dog doing the only thing their wiring says to do when the environment looks like this. Here's where the cortisol piece lands. When the dog tries to resolve that disorder and gets corrected or ignored, the tension doesn't lift. It accumulates. The problem is still there, unsolved, and now the dog also doesn't understand why their response to it is wrong. So the next time the kids start running, they try harder. Not because they're being defiant, but because the pressure built last time and never released. Your Border Collie herding your kids isn't a failure of training. It's not a sign that something went wrong. It's a working brain, intact, fully functional, doing exactly what 200 years of selection designed it to do, living in an environment that never gives it anything appropriate to work on. So let's put all three layers together, because in a Border Collie, they don't operate separately. The predatory motor sequence fires the moment the movement pattern appears. Dopamine locks the behavior in and accelerates it with every success. And the order imperative keeps the dog returning to it, because the underlying tension never resolves until the system does. These aren't three different problems. They're one system, running exactly as it was built to run in a living room instead of a hillside. A dog that gets corrected repeatedly for this, without any redirection towards something their brain can actually use, doesn't learn that herding is wrong. They learn that the only job they know how to do keeps getting rejected, and they don't know why. That confusion compounds over time. It shows up as anxiety, as pushiness, as a dog that seems wound tighter every week. The herding isn't aggression. It isn't a dominance move. It isn't a dog that's too much for a family. It's a working brain in a living room with nothing to work on. When you see it that way, the question changes. It stops being "how do I stop this?" and becomes "where can this go instead?" Because the sequence will fire. The drive is real and it's not going anywhere. Your job isn't to shut it down. It's to give it a productive target before your kids become the only available one. That's what Collie Mind is here for. Not quick fixes, but the actual psychology of what this breed is doing and why. If you know a Border Collie owner who's been told their dog is bad with kids, send them this video, because that's almost never the real story. Those kids running through your house haven't changed, but now you know your dog isn't reacting to them. They're managing them, the only way their brain knows how.